I'm Greg, and you're listening to Totally Preventable.
Totally preventable.
Totally preventable.
Totally preventable. Totally preventable. Totally preventable.
Totally preventable.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests on this podcast are those of our guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Polly and myself, the Totally Preventable podcast, or Newport County Prevention Coalition. Reference to any specific program, product, or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by the Newport County Prevention Coalition or Strategic Prevention Partnerships. The views expressed by guests are their own, and the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent.
Hey there, Greg.
How you doing, Polly?
Good. A little chilly.
It is.
Chilly outside, chilly in here.
It is. You know, living in New England, you know it's coming every year, yet you're never prepared.
Right.
for it
I
to
feel
come.
like we were kind of teased this winter. I mean, I guess it's not even
I think
winter.
today's
Is today the first day of winter?
yeah.
But like the fall was so beautiful and warm, and then bam, it was
Yep.
freezing. I don't know.
It's New England weather.
Yeah.
Can never prepare.
Nope.
Always. Oh, go
Always have
ahead.
to have some extra clothes in your car. just in
Exactly.
case. Yes.
I always feel like every year you need a new coat because the coat from last year just isn't warm enough for this year.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
My mom has an electric one.
Electric coat?
hmm
Coat?
Yep. It holds a battery pack. It's a vest. We got it for her a couple Christmases ago. And she turns it on and it all heats up. It comes in a coat form too. She's got a vest.
I'm thoroughly amazed right now. 'Cause I
Yep.
never knew such a thing existed.
Yep. So.
Wow.
I got you speechless.
I've got all kinds of questions now. Like, is it waterproof? How does that work? You know, but wow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You better be careful. She makes me mad. She don't know me. No, no, no. How it must be waterproof. I mean, it's not a raincoat, but yeah.
Well, we'll soon see. Well, to our business, we are here today with another great podcast.
Oh yeah.
Today we have the founder and author, Coach Kevin Kearns. He's written 2 books. There's Light in the Tunnel, and there's also Always Pick Last. So one book's about bullying, and one is about thriving with depression. So he is on this mission to eliminate the stigma around mental illness.
Oh, I can't wait to hear his plan to do that.
Yeah, he's he's got Burn with Kearns, and it's a great program. We want to learn how it ties in with his mission. So I look forward to hearing about it. He's got a great story. I'll let him share that. If you read the books, he goes into depth about his story, but it'll probably be more dynamic coming from him rather than me bubbling snippets of it. So
Right.
we will definitely ask him about that to share.
Okay, I'm looking forward.
All right. So without further ado, today with us, we have Coach Kevin Kearns, author and founder of Burn with Kearns, on our Totally Preventable podcast. Coach Kevin, how are you doing today?
And improving, Gregory and Polly. How is it in Newport, one of my favorite towns?
A little chilly.
A little chilly today.
I know, just a little bit, especially on that bridge.
Yeah.
Oh, that dropped down.
You know, the new traffic pattern, it's all crazy over here now.
Family member in the new traffic pattern too. Yeah.
The traffic pattern that's supposed to make it
Unfortunately-
easier, but it added 45 minutes to my commute.
Well, see, I know traffic because I'm from Boston, so I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can't tell with the accent.
So-
Pecan Harvard Yard.
so unfortunately, not even unfortunately, this is going to be great because it ties right in. I know we're laughing now, but this is a real
Mhm.
serious matter. Coach Kearns is really working to eliminate the stigma surrounding mental illness. But can we start off, for those who don't know Coach Kevin Kearns, can you share with us your story?
Sure. I appreciate that, Gregory and Polly. Well, my story is based on the first book, Always Pick Last. I was the kid that literally stunk at every sport. Got picked on all the time. I 2 left feet, the whole bit. And then I had a life-changing event at age 12. My father died, great guy, but he died of alcoholism. And he was only 48. And this is his ring that I never take off on my right hand. The bullying got worse, and a close uncle, because we had a very big family. My mother is Depression era baby, so she had one of 3. She was one of 8, and my father was one of 4. Put it this way, we had 31 first cousins.
Wow.
No joke.
Wow.
So there's always something to play with. My family was great. Unfortunately, my father passed away early, and we grew up pretty poor, which is fine. And a close uncle talked me into taking karate at age 13 because the bullying got worse. It saved my life. I've spent 44 years in martial arts.
Wow. Wow.
More recently, you may have heard the name if you've seen the movie Here Comes the Boom. The Thai boxing coach who was in the movie, who's a real Thai boxing coach, Mark Delagrati from Sityodtong, is my good friend and my Thai boxing coach since 2005.
Wow.
Well, Mike, that led me into martial arts, led me into realizing that you can get discipline, character, honor, self-control from martial arts. I got my first black belt in 1983, and that led into me. I started strength training too. I learned at a very early age, and this is one of the concepts I want to push forward because it's totally preventable. You know, when you think about it, that if you reach out to people, you need people on your team to help. So I got smart at 14, and I started talking to guys in the martial arts school, the dojo, as we call it, that looked like, you know, GI Joes and big gyms that were in their 20s, because we had a weight room. Hey, can you guys teach me weightlifting? Well, that started love number 2. Love number 1 was martial arts. Love number 2 was strength training. I never expected to go to UMass Boston and get my degree in exercise physiology. Never expected it. I kind of fell into it.
Wow.
I became a bodybuilder. I didn't realize how strong I was. At 17 and 17, 18 years old at 155, my max bench press was 315.
Wow. That's impressive.
And I was squatting 405. Okay. Didn't even realize I was that strong. And my body just responded to it. I literally was built like a tank, literally overnight. And I have this, I think it's just because of what I grew up with and how rough we had it. Because I don't, to this day, God love my mother's soul. She died 2 years ago, Christmas Eve, on her birthday. She was 92 of COVID. She kept us together. My sister was 18, I was 12, and she kept us together. And we had a 3 family, and I don't know how, she did a part-time job in my father's pension. That was it, And I got out of school for exercise physiology. I did my internship back in 1990 with one of the first personal trainers. Realized I was good at it. That was it. I worked with him for a while. Started my career called the Fitness Connection. That was my first company. Went from 25,000 to 6 figures within 3 years, doing one-on-ones. And thank you. That led to, I still got a lot more to do, but I appreciate that. That led to me opening a gym with a client in Brookline for 10 years. Happiest day is when I bought it. Second happiest day is when I sold it. As they say, kind of like a boat. And then what ended up happening is, as we were ready to sell the gym, it kind of tanked because of the gym didn't tank. The economy tanked because it was right around 9/11. So the people that were interested pulled out. I sat on it for another 5 years, sold it, and then my marketing manager says, "Look, we got to kill the name, the Fitness Connection, because you have to remember the times. Websites weren't big yet; they were just becoming. So the Fitness Connection wasn't secured by me, so that was tough. So that's when we started Burn with Kearns, and then I got involved because of Mark Delagrati from Sityodtong. I got involved with UFC fighters because I realized these guys weren't training like athletes; they were training like bodybuilders. And I started working with some of the amateurs, and then I got lucky and got a local fighter named Kenny Florian. That the big joke was he didn't look like a fighter. He looked like the accountant you want to pick a fight with. And then I rebuilt him after a loss. That's what Dana White used to say. He goes, he looks like the accountant at the end of the bar, but he'll choke you out. So after Kenny lost the fight in 2006 to Sean Shirk, I came on board and I literally changed him. And, everybody talks about, TB therapy and, all the functional training stuff. I was doing that back in 98. I switched from bodybuilding to all that because of people like Vern Gambetter and Gary Gray and people like that, and Mike Clark. I learned all that stuff and just completely changed everything I did. And if I show you the before and after pictures, people are like, he's on steroids. No. I mean, the good part was here I am walking out to my first fight at the UFC, which is like a roller coaster walking out to a fight. I'm on Spike TV live. Walking out with my fighter. My kid's like, "This dad!" It's a roller coaster. That led to me training Kenny to 6 wins and Kenny Florian, getting him back to #1 contender. And I ended up training every fighter that walked in Sityodtong because Marcus trained just about everybody. every fighter that walked in, I ended up becoming their strength coach. So I ended up training 15 UFC fighters, put it on video back in 2007, back when you had to not do it on a phone, put it on DVD on a shoestring budget, legit. We filmed my system on 3 DVDs. We did 3 DVDs, produced 1,000 of each DVD, which cost us about $4,000. And we filmed, edited, got the cover design. We did it all for $10,000.
Wow.
It should have been 25.
Right.
Never expected it to go global. I was writing for 2 magazines, premier magazines in MMA, and it exploded. We made our money back in a week. That led to my certification system. That led to all this stuff.
These events had a negative impact on your mental health.
Oh yeah, severe.
And this is what brought you to where you are now with your books.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's light in the tunnel. There's light in the tunnel is How to Survive and Thrive with Depression. It's a true story of what I went through just recently, as I mentioned before we came on, to Gregory and to you, Polly.
Yep.
Tomorrow signifies my 3rd year anniversary of trying to commit suicide twice. And then I went to McLean Hospital, which thank God I went to McLean and found ECT therapy because it fixed me. Nothing else was working.
So how did you overcome your suicidal feelings?
Thank God for McLean, because my therapist, this scar on my neck is real. I try to do that. And it's not like the movies where you just cut and it's gone. And I'm like, what did I do? Patch myself up on December 22nd of 2019. Anxiety started. These weird feelings started out of nowhere. And I've had some bouts of depression and anxiety before, when my father died, when this happened, when that happened. And I always was able to exercise out of them, because in my system, what we're pushing for my first TED Talk is what we call, and what we do now too, is what for keynote speaking is what we call our 3 pillars in the Burnham Kearns system: proper exercise, proper nutrition, proper mindset programming. The challenge was none of my go-tos was working. Yoga wasn't working. Martial art, nothing was working. I would be in yoga and I would the thoughts would just keep coming up. It would just keep going and going and going. And one of my talks is called the cement overcoat, because that's what it feels like. You just have this overcoat, these bag of bricks on you, and you just can't get rid of it. And nothing worked. No therapy worked. No amount of drugs, nothing worked. And the only thing that worked was, thank God, my therapist committed me to McLean. I told him I want to go to McLean. And I found, I always say, when I don't know what to do, when I have that pause and I'm unsure, I swear I hear my father talking to me and say, no, Kevy, you need to do this. I didn't know anything about ECT, and I went for it. And it's usually 12 treatments. I started feeling better after 3.
Wow.
What is ETC?
Electroconvulsive therapy. The challenge is it was demonized by the media, or I should say by movies, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh,
They don't shock you without anesthesia anymore. They've got something like 40 years worth of data on this, and it worked. It worked. Basically, what they do is they shock your brain into what's it called? Almost like a seizure, and it resets the chemicals. It worked.
Wow.
It really worked.
Now, from the outside looking in, people would see, hearing your story, you had the success. You were saying how you went from like a 25,000 up to 100,000, or you made your money back within a week. They would see that as success. And a lot of people have the feeling that money is going to get them out of whatever depression that is. Can you explain how that, for you in your story, how that didn't work, how that success? I know you got into a little bit of your story about why you still felt depression, but can you explain how it is still possible, even with what you feel as success?
Yeah.
Depression.
Money's, I appreciate that, Gregory. It's a great question. It's not going to solve your problems, right? I know plenty of people that are multimillionaires that, they think their life sucks. Excuse the English, but it does. They'll think, oh, I've got MS. I'm like, you don't get MS. You're fat. Sorry. Stop eating donuts. Get over it. Let's move forward. And when you look at everything else that connects to it, right? This is the way I think, okay? Mental illness is now off the chart with COVID, right? Ever since we went through this, it's off the chart. I mean, we've got 5-year-olds on Prozac. And mental illness will lead you down the path of addiction. That's why you'll start overeating. That's why the alcohol, that's why the drugs, because you just want to numb the feeling. Personally, people say that, marijuana or whatever it is a gateway drug. Well, so isn't sugar. So isn't caffeine. Anything that gets you substance, and because it changes the chemical balance in your brain. Okay. And it's a negative influence. So I agree with you. I would literally leave town to get away from my ex, even though I was away from my kids, because I wanted to be with people that wanted to be with me. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mhm.
So that gave me a brief break as far as successful. I'm like, okay, I'll give you an example. I was in California, did 2 seminars back to back, made $4,000 for the family, and still working during the week. I landed, I left the dish in the sink, been gone for 4 days. She walks by, and she was very passive aggressive. She says, it was easier when you weren't here. That was the stuff I had to give up with. I'm like, no matter how much money I made, it wasn't enough. You end up feeling like it's not, no matter how much money you make, you feel like it's not enough. It's never enough for whatever's going on in your head. You think money's going to get you out of there. So I take a page from Matthew McConaughey. I'm not a big fan of happiness, because happiness raises the bar. I'll be happy when I make this money. I'll be happy when I get this car. I'll be happy when I find this right person. I believe, as Matthew says, joy, because joy is always in process. If you get lost in the process, like Bo Jackson would run through the goal line and into the stands. You had to tell him he scored, because he just got so lost in the moment. I think the other challenge too is and this is from years of therapy, we start going through like global terms. I always, you never, you usually, but you don't really know that, I think it's very tough. And this is taking a page from Dr. Wayne Dyer, who I've studied a lot of stuff. Matter of fact, one of my tattoos on my arm, which they all mean something, is what he used to say: hold your vision, keep your passion. I added perseverance. And and I think Deepak Chopra said this too. We get so wound up in being human doings versus human being, And Rebecca Ewell said this to me at our meeting. She goes, you know what? Maybe I don't need to check my email. Maybe I need to just sit here and read. Maybe I need to sit here and watch the waves. It's almost like people when they go in for medical advice, and the doctors have to be able to say, like, you might have to live with some pain for a while. Okay. Pain is tough. This is a thing that I learned from yoga. I've been a 14-year yogi. That's my third love. Pain is temporary. Suffering is a choice.
Wow.
How long do you want to suffer? How long do you want to suffer?
Right.
Did you have to leave a lot of your friends and your previous people that you hung out with behind to make this change, make this growth?
No. What ended up happening is, I appreciate that question, Paul. It's a great question. The ones that were the most, it's a chapter in my book. When you become transparent, you realize who your real friends are. My real friends and my real family stuck by me. My sister, my friend Lionel Bean, Craig Rose. Craig Rose used to drive me to ECT therapy from Linfield. Okay. People like Coach Stephen Whittier, people like Coach Mark Delagrati, people like my editor, Nick Pete, one of my best friends, Scott O'Keefe. They had my back. They had my back. And it's those, and it's a lot of those people were connected from, when I was a child, when I was a kid, and they were connected with me through martial arts. And we have a saying in martial arts: relationships built on the mat last forever.
I hear you.
Greg and I say relationships that, started in front of the microphone last forever.
Oh, isn't that nice?
I can definitely understand.
Well,
the martial art.
Yes.
Oh, you can't. There you go. Well, let's get back to Rebecca Paula's question real quick. I think what happens is you cut toxic people out of your life. Like, I had a friend I known since I was 15, and I was 6 months out of McLean, feeling better, and I was in a relationship with somebody that was toxic, and it was just like, you want somebody to take up your time. And it was during COVID too. And this person was very passive aggressive too. And she's like, when I'm updating my social media, she's like, I've never seen anybody want to look at me. I'm like, I'm self-employed. I gotta be self-centered. I'm self-employed. So I call my best friend Lionel. Couldn't get him on the phone. I call another friend of mine. I'll leave him nameless. And he's like, well, I don't know what context, blah, blah, blah. And then he said to me, he's known me for 30 years. I just got out of McLean 6 months ago. He goes, you're the most self-centered person I've ever met. I tapped the brakes. I'm like, who says that to somebody? Who says that to somebody? Do you want me to go over the edge?
Wow.
Again? And I'm looking at it and go, if I'm the most self-centered, and then I processed it, and I said, if I'm the most self-centered person you've ever met, why have you been hanging out with me and known me for 30 years? And I call Lionel, who knows him, my best friend Lionel Bean. He says, him? He goes, please, brother. He goes, you've been there for me since we were 14, and vice versa. He goes, you're no centered. That guy is. So that's my point of, it's almost like the Buddhism believes in, be friendly, the whole bit. But Buddha says, if you have toxic people, cut them out. Cut them out of your life. Or that, as they say, I think Eric Thompson says this, thank the person for breaking up with you because they just made room for somebody else. Thank the person for firing you because they just made room for you to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
It's all how you look at it, right?
Yeah. I think it's that fear. People.
Oh my God, yes.
Comfort and what they're used to, and when they're exposed to something that they have to do new, it's like, oh no, it's that initial fear. So you got to take that.
Well, I love that. I love what you said, Gregory, and that's the challenge, right? Mm-hmm. There is no growth without some fear, right? There's no growth without fear. One of my talks is called "What You Go Through is What You Grow Through."
It's a good topic right there. One thing that you mentioned earlier, and I'm hoping you can expand on it. What is mindset programming?
Mindset programming is getting rid of the negativity. Like I tell my clients right off the bat, don't watch the news. It's all negative, right? Never anything good. 80% of it's negative, right? And negative self-talk. Usually I never be okay with being not okay and be okay with new things. Like I have a close client of mine, Paul Jones. He runs concierge services for the elderly. Now they do a lot of work with the elderly, and he's a big advocate of telling people, change the way you go to work, right? Change the way you do this because it fires off new neurons. So I think you need to look at yourself sometime and take a kind of a 50,000 foot view and go, okay, what am I typically doing? I believe in habits, don't get me wrong, but what habits are serving you? What habits aren't serving you? Should you be going to eating that food that doesn't taste so good, but you're hanging out with your friends? Or, what's the habit?
Right.
And then not being, being okay with something new, Growth, the life's a journey. Growth is optional, isn't it? It just is.
I like that idea about taking a different way. As I exposed to Polly before, and during past interviews, I have that tendency just to be so zoned in on, driving. Like it's just, I know I'm going straight. I know I turn here. I know I do this. I know that there's no thought into it. So I'm daydream. I can't even tell you if the light was green or red or whatever. I'm just driving. But if I go that other way, fire off those other neurons, I'm more aware and I can enjoy that ride or observe more.
Sure. Take a different trip.
Do that.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate that, Gregory and Polly, for sharing that. And this is a saying they have in yoga and martial arts: get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Comfort is an illusion, isn't it?
Yeah.
The heat's too hot, heat's too cold. Well, I mean, when you really think about the way we live now compared to our ancestors, we were living in a cave. If you didn't have fire, guess what? You're going to die. Right. It's just the way it's going to be. If you didn't hunt for your food, I mean, we have it pretty damn easy right now, I think.
Yeah. I
mean, when you can go Grubhub and get your food delivered to your door, I want my coffee. Okay.
Wow.
Coach,
but I make coffee nervous.
It's a fighting word.
What's that, Polly?
Grubhub is on Polly's speed dial.
Yeah, so watch out. It might be fighting words.
Her top contact.
It's all good. It's all. Hey, I sent somebody I'm dating, soup because they were sick to their work. She's like, "You sent me soup?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's called DoorDash. It took a little effort. Wow. I had to find the food and which soap, and I'm like,
That's right. There's work in there. There's work.
It was work.
Yeah. I hear you. So can you make the connection between peace of mind and mental health for us?
I think peace of mind is some of the stuff I've alluded to already, like, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So in my book, I allude this a lot. The reason I called it is light in the tunnel, and this is a concept I got from my first therapist, Dana Brubrick, because she would always say about my marriage, there's light in the tunnel, there's light in the tunnel, because it's a cliche. There's light at the end of the tunnel. So we've all had, I'm sure you both have had probably a bad flight, right? Where you're bouncing all over the place and you're like, I'm going to die. And then, the pilot gets on, sorry about the bumps, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be through this in 15 minutes. We're like, no, I want this over now. And it's the same thing. If you can get okay with that, say, okay, if you can feel the feelings and say, okay, why am I scared? Are we really, and add it up. Am I really going to die? Okay. You're in a plane, granted, you're up in the air, but the pilots are way better trained than the 17-year-old kid with his phone that just got his license with a 2,500-pound weapon. Okay. So I think peace of mind is being able to go, I'm okay. And even if I'm not okay, I'm okay. There's a great book out there called I'm Not Okay, You're Not Okay, and I'm not, and it's okay. Okay. And I think we tend to, I'm feeling sad, I want to get over it. Well, maybe to get in touch with, well, why am I feeling sad? Why am I upset? What is bothering me? And there's a great philosophy from Buddha's brain, which is called first dart, second dot theory. First dot is that initial sting, what happens to you. And your second dot, and this is where language really comes in, is your response versus your reaction. I mean, we think about it right now. We live in a very reactive society. Oh, what do they say online? What do they say about me? Oh, I gotta answer that text. Why? Why do you have to answer the text? Like, I learned about 3 years ago, none of my notifications are on because I've got 2 emails, LinkedIn, Messenger, because I do business over in the UK, WhatsApp. Forget it. I'm checking my phone anyway. Enough is enough. And people, they show this in they'll show cortisol go up in your system from that fight or flight mechanism. So I think we have to get to the point where peace of mind has to kick and go, you know what? Focus on the now, the little things. The sun's out. It's not snowing. We have a tendency as human beings, I don't know why we do this, to focus on the negativity. I'll give you an example. Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about this in one of his books. He's out in the Serengeti. He's out on a safari, and you have guards with you because you're on safari. You're in tents. He goes, I get up in the middle of the night, and the moon was just huge. I mean, you're talking no lights, right? You can see the stars, everything, and the moon's full, and he's got his guard with him, and there's a whole flock of zebra grazing, and one of the zebras was clawed because a lion had been going after it all day, and it's out there grazing. And the guide said, he goes, yeah, this lion's been after him like for the past 2 days. And the zebra wasn't complaining, like, how come, why am I any different than any of the other zebras? Why does that lion want me? He was just grazing. He wasn't complaining about a situation. It is what it is. And I sometimes you can't stand that saying, but it is what it is. Right. In other words, if it's almost like this philosophy of it's in the way of things. If you're going to fly, it's in the way of things. You might hit turbulence. If you're going to drive, it's in the way of things. You're going to hit traffic. Mm-hmm. If somebody dies in your family, it's in the way of things. You're going to feel sad and depressed. If you're going through divorce, it's in the way of things. You're going to feel sad and depressed and dejected. It's in the way of things. Mm-hmm. Versus trying to numb that feeling, going, I should drink, I should do this. Now, I'm all for, hey, I feel awful, let's work out. Yeah, because we've proven that even 1 to 3 minutes of exercise will raise the catecholamines, will get rid of the negativity, right? And your endorphins will kick in, and it makes you feel that it's been proven and documented over and over again. Same as eating healthier. If you're eating sugar, you're going to feel like garbage. Same as the mindset, right? I feel X, I need to do Y. Why do I feel this? Well, how do I alleviate that? What's going to be healthy for me to alleviate this feeling after I felt it? Identify the feeling, get in touch with why it is what it is. What is your action plan to get out of the feeling? Or move forward through it, I should say.
That's a great plan.
Yeah.
Can you explain in your book, I've seen that you have a phrase in there, hindsight versus hindsight. Can you explain?
Sure, I love that. Thank you, Gregory. It's a great concept that I learned from Jackie Barnwell, one of the best yoga teachers on the planet in New England. She would walk in class on a Tuesday, and it was what's called a vibration class. She would have one of her students who was studying yoga play live music for 90 minutes in hot yoga because the vibration from the music. And she's like talking to Mother Teresa. She'd walk in one day and she says, I had an epiphany. 45 people, not one person said a word, mat to mat. Instead of hindsight, they should call it kindsight, because hindsight is judgment. How do you know until you go through it, right? How do you know until you go through it? Like one of my talks is the 2-year-old mind in the 40-year-old body. Okay, think about it. Does either one of you have kids?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can you tell me how many times they fell to walk? You can't, right?
Right.
But it's in their DNA. I have to walk. I have to walk. I have to walk. Now, if you took that 2-year-old mind, put it in the 40-year-old body, you wouldn't feel fear or reject anything, right? You would just do it. You wouldn't care. What am I looking for now? If you reversed it, if you take the 40-year-old mind, put it in the 2-year-old body. Oh my God, I fell down. Look at these clothes. I pooped in my pants. I'm so embarrassed, right? The negative and the ego kicks in. What is ego? And I'm not trying to get religious, but ego, and this is a phrase I learned from Wayne Dyer, edging God out, the God within. The God within. Get in touch with that. Mm-hmm. Get in touch with that. So kindsight is being able to say to yourself, you know what? I needed to experience that. Like, I've got involved with a couple people over the past 5 years that eventually turned into be alcoholics. And a friend of mine in the business that you're in said to me, well, maybe instead of beating myself up, which most of us do, I do too. She said to me, she goes, maybe it's a lesson you fully didn't learn yet. You didn't identify, you didn't identify the trigger. So you didn't identify what that is, and I found one of my things that I have a challenge with is because I am Batman and I have the tattoo to prove it. And because of my, and because of my father, because I couldn't save him, I always want to be the white knight. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to go like this, as you know, with your kids. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like letting go of their bike the first time. You got to let them go. If they fall, right. That's why my ringtone on my phone is Daughtry, I'll fight. If you listen to those words, it's about relationships and it's about having kids. I don't want to see you fall. I don't want to see you struggle. But guess what? It's the only way you're going to learn sometimes. I say this in one of my talks. How do you know what sharp is until you cut yourself? How do you know what hot is until you burn yourself? How do you know what failure is until you fall flat in your face? And at the end of the day, what is failure but results you didn't expect?
Right. Right. You got to try it first before you can fail.
Try it or buy it.
Yep. Can you tell us, a little bit about your program and how it offers hope to people?
Well, hope is in my chapter 2, and I learned this from when my older daughter was in her program at I forget the name of the company for her eating disorder. I saw this acronym, HOPE, Hold On, Pain Ends. So the way our program works is my mission with the TED Talk, with the books, with the lectures, with the keynote speaking, with my fitness programming, everything is to reach out to people who are or have struggled with mental illness, recover with proper exercise, proper nutrition, proper mindset program, because it's totally preventable. Okay, if you get that going. So what we do is we evaluate customers or corporations, because when you look at what's going on today, we've become, for lack of a better word, socially inept. The mask, nobody interacts. The first thing that breaks down a barrier with somebody is a smile. It's the first thing they teach you. It's they'll smile. But nobody wants to look at anybody who hasn't for years, because I might catch this god-awful virus. I won't shake hands. I won't do this. So I think we almost have to take a step back to that. So we try to encourage people, get out in the community, get to meetings, talk to people. So the first thing we do is get with people, what's going on in your life? And then I pick up the language. We interview them. Never, I'm always, and you hear the negativity, say, okay, so what's causing that? What was the root mechanism? I'm not a therapist. I tell people I'm a coach. I'm a wellness transformation coach. That's what I do. What's causing this? Why do you feel that way? Okay, well, this person died, that person died. Okay, or this divorce, that happened. I lost my job. Okay, all right. So I understand that. You have every right to feel that way. And not but, because but negates what you just said. People don't realize that. People don't. I like you, but Gregory, you're like, well, thanks, but no thanks. I like you and says a lot. People forget that. It's subtle, but people forget that. And you tell people like, okay, your mother died. It's awful. I get it. And what is your action plan? And sometimes that action plan might only be get up in the morning, brush your teeth, shower. And people think like, well, I didn't, it's like, what have you accomplished today? Well, I get out of bed. Well, maybe that's it. Well, I showered. I went grocery shopping. Okay. So and when people say I didn't accomplish anything today, I'm like, well, what did you accomplish? What did you do so far? Well, I got up, I showered, I made the bed, I did it. I go, you didn't accomplish anything. What do you call that? You made a decision, which is the root word is incision, which means to cut off, to do X, Y, and Z. So when you think about that idea, you got to program their mind and say, think differently. Think differently. You're beating yourself up for what? And I get it. I do it too. I mean, I've done videos and DVDs, and I'm like, oh my God, look at that angle. I look so fat. Oh my God, I'm the worst. Why did I say that? I sound stupid. It takes me hours to edit stuff. And my team will go like, Coach, it's okay. I go, no, it's dumb. They're like, we're just gonna. And then I find out later, customers are like, hey, I love that line in that video. Can you say the party's over? I'm like, I said that? Really? So our programming deals with that. Let's identify the need. Okay. That's sales 101. What's the need? What are the triggers? How do we get rid of the triggers? Okay. How do you go over that hump? Are you exercising? What's your eating habits like? What are you telling yourself anymore? What are you listening to? What video games are you playing? What music are you listening? It all ties together. All of it. If you're programming yourself for negativity, you will be negative. And as we tell people too, what is your support circle? In my first book, Always Pick Last, the guides for anti-bullying, we call it the 4S formula. Speak up, stand up, stay together, self-defense. Now, stay together. Get with like-minded people. They will bring you up. Self-defense. Well, guess what? Self-defense isn't always physical. It's mental, emotional, and spiritual before it ever gets physical. So what is your barrier? What is your, on guard for your mental health and your spiritual health? What is that? Do you need to leave a situation? Do you need to get rid of a toxic person? Do you need to get rid of a toxic boss? Do you need to stand up to somebody? Do you need to put your foot down? It all ties together. So I think investigating, doing a consultation, say, what are those triggers? What's going on here? What's the pattern? Okay, so can we move? Like I had a client in Montreal, I see online. He had a trainer for 7 years. He's 44. His back was always jacked up. Couldn't pick his kids up. He was smoking. Within 3 months, he's now off cigarettes, off caffeine. His back has not hurt him at all. He's like, I can't believe this. I'm able to dance with my daughters. Haven't been able to do that. I can pick up my 8-year-old son. And it's programming. Yeah, he's a high-powered guy, but why are you smoking? Right? Why are you drinking so much? Why okay, you're making yourself strong and big, but your back is such a mess that you had to have your staff help you out of your car and you're 40 years old. I hope that fills in the blanks about the program. Yeah. I mean, our programs go from one-on-one to corporate to, the keynote speaking, whatever they want. It's on the website, burmakearns.com, whatever they need, whatever they want from, one of the things I love doing is I go to domestic violence shelters and I'll teach domestic violence self-defense. And self-defense gives women and men, for that matter, and children that power to say, I can handle myself. And I know walking around who can handle himself and who can't. And you go, okay. It's kind of like, that person that walks through the neighborhood and the dogs see him, the dogs don't bark at that person. You know what I'm saying, Gregory? You're like,
what do you think? Which one of us can handle ourselves?
I know, I'm going to put my money on Polly right now. My money's on her. 3-1.
So speaking of your first book, or speaking of your books, actually, how did it feel to get that thank you letter from former First Lady Michelle Obama?
That's a funny story. I don't know if I sent you that interview with ABC. My youngest daughter Shannon calls me. She's like, "Dad, you got a letter from the White House." I'm like, "What did I do?" Holy crap! I'm like, what did I do? I go, open it. Are they coming for me? I was like, and then what did I do? I sent her 15 more books and a bunch of my workout videos.
Hey, keep it going. Keep it going.
Shameless self-promoter. I gotta be. But people say that you're a shameless self-promoter. I'm like, yeah. Are you marketing me? I'm not Nike. I don't have a budget.
Wow.
That's great.
At the end of the day, it's all about helping each other out. We're supposed to be human beings. Compassion. I think The Dalai Lama said if we took one generation of 5-year-olds and had them meditate on compassion, we could change the universe.
Wow.
One generation of 5-year-olds.
That is just like,
That's powerful.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Do you have,
Good.
I was going to ask if you had advice for parents whose kids might be struggling with bullying or being shy or introverted.
Get help, talk to them, and then get them with somebody that aligns with them. You know, somebody that they can talk to. They may not want to talk to their mother or father. They may be embarrassed. Like one of the things my mother did the best for me is I kept going to her. In the book I talk about it. I kept going to her when I was bullied. Like I would walk in the summer. Was that summer at 13 was the loneliest summer of my life. I would literally. She was working for a truant officer, which means I never could skip school, unfortunately. I got to put in some comedy there. And I would literally walk to her work midday. She'd give me money, go down to Papagino's, get a slice of pizza, French fries. Then she would take me home from her office at 3, and I would sit there and watch TV. And I kept doing that. And then she eventually had to push me away. I had to stand on my own 2 feet. You know, I tell people this all the time. I was 21 at 12. I had no choice. And that my father's death wasn't the first one. By the time I was 21, I had buried 12 people in my family. I was in a funeral every year.
wow.
Every year. Cancer, somebody got murdered, emphasis, you name it. And that messes your head up. So I think when you're dealing with your child, get the help you need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and get the child into some type of activity. I'm gonna push martial arts because that's what I'm big on. You know, martial arts saves a lot. You'll see people that go into martial arts because why? Because they stink at everything else, and a martial art teachers are different. They'll spend the time. A coach, you go to, unfortunately, with all good being sports coaches, if somebody isn't that good, they cut them from the team. You know, that's unfortunate. But that is life too. Life is not easy. You know, life is not easy at all. I would say stay in touch with your kids, and like, you know, the great comedian Sebastian Maniscalco, you know, you should be going through your kids' rooms and your kids' phones and everything else and seeing what are they up to? What are they doing? You know, I love the parent that says, "Oh yeah, I didn't know that they had 14 grenades." I'm like, and they're dressing like Darth Vader. What's going on? I'm like, investigate what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? You know, and the video games, and I think all that stuff and the social media is just rotting people's brains. It really is. Get the kid out playing. Get the kid doing activities. Get the kid doing. I mean, Gregory, you look like you're what, 42, right? Polly's like 28.
Exactly. You hit it right on the nose.
Back in the day, I'm 56, and back in the day, right, we had recess every day, and we had gym 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I heard from a parent that, oh, my son used to like gym, and they played a board game last week. I'm like, what? A board game?
Wow.
Are you kidding me? Kids need to move. You move, you improve. That goes with adults. The only difference between an adult and a kid is an adult is a kid with a job.
Mm. And
I love that quote. We don't get old. We don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing.
Right.
So get the kid out there. Do something with the kid. Take the kid out. You know, they want to try something. When I go out and talk to the kids and I say, okay, stay together. And one of the examples I use, okay, Bobby Fischer was a master chess player at 10. That was his thing. That's his thing. Michael Phelps, his thing was swimming. Great. Get with swimmers. Well, don't hang out with the horseback riders. That's not going to help you. You know, I hang out with people that strength train, and I hang out with martial arts and yoga people. That's who I hang with. You know, that's who I associate with. So if you get with like-minded people, get that kid into like-minded people. Build their confidence. Let them do things. My daughter's 8 years old. Go pump gas. How do I do that? I'll show you. Mm-hmm. You can't hand them the world. Life is tough. You got to show them. Mm-hmm. And then they got to figure it out, and they got to fall in their face. And then you got to be there to pick them up.
Do your kids pump gas?
Yeah, Carter does. My oldest son is 9, and he pumps gas.
Both. There you go. Both my daughters, 20 and 18. When my ex and I were deciding to have kids, I said, I don't care if they're boys or girls, they're going to learn how to defend themselves. They used to wrestle at my fighters. I have videos and pictures of them wrestling my UFC fighters. Isn't that cool?
It is.
It is cool.
And they'll both go for broke if they have to.
Right.
Because I always believe in using it. I haven't been in a fight in years because I always talk them out of it or whatever. I just talk the person down or whatever. But you have to be ready if you need to, you know, because people will get physical and take advantage of you. But one of the biggest things I told people, I go, if you're prepared and confident and you give them that blank stare, 9 times out of 10, the bully will back down.
for my daughter's in martial arts. She'll be in her second year. And I just noticed the growth in her from when she started to now. She before would be very quiet, very meek, stayed in the back, stayed in the shadow. She's a twin, so she would always kind of just adapt to who her brother's friends were.
Mm-hmm.
But as she grew in her martial arts dojo, you could definitely see her after working with her sensei, more confidence. And she talks about her friends and she talks about her play dates. So I agree definitely with martial arts. And, you know, my boys are into football and basketball, and you can start to see their growth as well. So I definitely agree with getting the kids out and about. It's what you're saying is hitting it right on the head. That's
exactly. I appreciate that, Gregory. And it's like, get back to what Paula said. It doesn't matter whether with 3 pillars, whether they're an adult or a child. You know, proper exercise, proper nutrition, proper mindset programming. If you're feeding them McDonald's, they're going to feel like crap. Let's just face facts. You know, if you're letting them on their phones to watch TikTok all day, well, what are they watching?
right.
Yeah.
Investigate.
So I've learned a bunch.
Yep.
So have I.
I've learned I can take you in a fight.
That's right. That's what I learned the most. Molly's right. I learned that the most.
So for our listeners and viewers, how do they get in contact? How do they get involved with Burns with Kearns, or how do they get you to be a motivational speaker for an engagement?
So it's Burn with Kearns, BURNWITHKEARNS.com. They can email me at kevin@burnwithkearns.com. That's BURNWITHKEARNS.com. And I answer my phone, 508-404-8503.
Thank you.
You still there?
We're still here.
Yep.
We're
All our
still
listeners are going to be calling
here.
you.
That's right.
My line's open. My line is always open for anybody that needs help. I may not pick up right away, but I am here.
Okay.
Right. Well,
Perfect.
we thank you for all the work that you're doing. I mean, the 2 books were outstanding. Once you turn, it's, as they say, a page turner. I've seen page turners, but this one, especially, there's light in the tunnel. It was more raw. So it
Yes.
felt like it wasn't, I'm not going to say cookie cutter, because it was nowhere near.
No.
This was raw from beginning to end.
Yep.
It was real, and for going through that situation, it really hit home, and it felt like you were talking to somebody. When you read it, you knew you were talking to somebody who's been through it. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, that's why I made, if you read the first book too, the first book is people like, wow, man, I felt like you were in the room with me.
Right.
I'm like, well, that was the point. You know, that was my, with Kit Birmingham, my ghostwriter. And my second book, what I did differently is I actually filmed myself on Zoom when I was having tough moments. That way I would have 3 products, and I thought it would be more powerful. And then I was able to upload that to Audible. Then I had somebody transcribe all the videos.
Wow.
Because I wanted to have multiple products, because people are more into podcasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I wrote some of it. I write well. I write okay, but I'm like a C-. My English teacher probably rolls around in his grave, because I've written 330 articles. I've written 2 books, going on my 3rd book, and which I think is kind of funny. I'm like, why do people want to listen to me? I'm like, I stink at writing. But anyway, I speak better and more plainly and raw and real, and that's why people kind of like my approach, because it's not sugarcoated.
Right.
Relatable. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely relatable.
Yeah.
Even in the first book, it was just like, as you mentioned, Lionel. I remember the story about Lionel and you guys blending into the bushes with the beer.
Whoopsie, we're not supposed to talk about that one. Well, no. Shh, in the shopping carriage and everything else. Well, Lionel, I always break Lionel's chops. You are a bad influence.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Coach Kearns. We really appreciate it. All the success to you with this TED Talk that you have coming up. We really look forward to meeting back with you and getting you on the podcast again.
Please do. Anytime that Newport mental health community needs me, or anybody else for that matter in the mental health community, don't hesitate to reach out to me. This is about the mission, about helping end the stigma, one person at a time.
All right.
All right. Super.
Take care now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
I'm Polly, and you've just listened to Totally Preventable.
Totally preventable. Totally preventable. Totally preventable. Totally preventable.